A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Ankita from NASCOM, and today we are beginning an all new series on go to market. Here we have already curated interesting topics with awesome speakers, and I will keep on sharing more information as per the schedules of the sessions. To begin this fantastic series, I have with me Mr. Amit Agarwal, Senior VP, Sales and Business Development, Manthan Systems. He will talk on something very intriguing, the three sales sutras. Like he's ready to spill the beans about the mantras of the successful sales folks people out in the industry. Before I hand over to Amit, I have three more points for you. There are three poll questions. Please participate in all of them. Second, please be curious, write questions at any time during the session. Amit will cater to most of them after his presentation. Third, please do not forget to leave your feedback. It'll help me better my future sessions. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Ankita. So, can everybody see the screen, please? Can you just type yes if you can see the screen? Okay, excellent, excellent. So, it is Tuesday afternoon. Around 65 of us have already joined, and we are here to talk about the three sales sutras on a NASCOM Connect webinar. Let's learn together and let's have fun together. So let's start this thing with a poll question. I will just launch the poll. Kindly respond to it, and I'll give you around 20 seconds for that. So the poll is launched. Kindly take your time. Ten more seconds. Five more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I'll close the poll now. So can you see the response? Can you see the response here? Can you see this? So the response is 19% said 10 million, 45% said 2.1 million, 35% said 7.7 billion. And why is this question important? Because of the concept of everybody being in sales. So if you notice, the population of Earth is 7.7 billion, and I believe that there are 7.7 billion sales owners in the world, because each one of us are either selling a product, a service, or an idea. Product and service is quite common. From an idea perspective, just look at these examples. An employee is asking her manager for a salary raise. A mother is asking her sons not to play video game. A politician is giving a speech. All of these are ideas. In fact, this webinar also communicates three sales sutras in form of ideas. So fundamentally, we all are selling, and therefore 7.7 billion sales owners in the world, because that's the population of the world. Zig Ziglar, who is the famous management guru from US, also mentioned something similar. I've always said that everybody is in sales. Maybe you don't hold the title of salesperson, but if the business you are in requires you to deal with people, you, my friend, are in sales. So in the context of, now with this, do you guys agree we all are in sales? If yes, kindly say, type yes in your boxes so that I can understand that we all are on the same page. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now let's move on to the actual agenda of this webinar, which is the three sales sutras. So we will be discussing Sales Sutra 1, Mount Everest of Needs, Sales Sutra 2, It's Like, Sales Sutra 3, The Magic of One Thing in Sales, and we'll take them one by one. And we will be discussing the three parts in each sutra, why it is needed, what it is all about and how can we implement them. So let's start with the Sales Sutra one, which is Mount Everest of needs. So why is Mount Everest of needs sutra needed? Primarily so that we can unearth new needs effortlessly. So in the sales, the word needs is quite common. I use a lot of Hindi, and the word which I use is dard kya hai. So what is the dard? So this sutra will help us uncover the new dards or new needs of our clients. Let's dig deep into it. So now let's talk about what is Mount Everest of needs. To explain the Mount Everest of needs, we have to understand that we have two kinds of needs. One is serviced needs, the other is unserviced needs. Now, each of them have subcategories. In service needs, the category is known needs that are met. So, for an example, TV remote. If you remember old days when we had a television where we have to go near to the television and change the channel, I had a Bush television and a Murphy television where I used to do that. Now we don't need to do that because there are remotes. So this was a known need and it is met. Now let's go to the unserviced needs category. Within that, let's go to the first, known needs that are not met. So let's look at the first example. So I travel a lot, around 50 to 70% on field, and because of which I have to eat food outside. Now my desire and my need is to have homemade food. Is it getting served? The answer is no. Maybe sometime in Mumbai, but not in many places where I go, especially international. So it's a known need of mine, and of course some of the other people who are in sales and who actively travel, yet it is not being met. Similarly, let's look at the other example from business. So marketers they need their customer experience to be integrated. They want all channels like email, SMS, app notification, website, all of them to be integrated. Now that's their need. Is it satisfied? Not yet. So there are many other examples which can fall under the category of known needs that are not met. Now let's go to the third category, known needs with resistance to change. Let's take an example from personal life. So everybody knows that waking up early at 5 a.m. is very nice, good for health, good for productivity. However, how many of us are able to do that? Why? Because there is a resistance to change. We are habitual of waking up at a particular time. To change that, there is a resistance. Now in business, if we take an example, CRM. Many sales team use CRM. Even then, the adoption of CRM in many places is very low. Why is that? Sometimes it is difficult. Most of the times it is basically adaptation to the new thing. People are used to writing emails, sending notes on email, updating Excels, not CRM. So there is a resistance to change. Now let's go to the unknown needs within the unserviced category. Let's take two examples. So BlackBerry, I'm sure you all are aware of BlackBerry. In early 2000s, this company in Canada thought about bringing emails on a phone. Earlier, we were all using laptop or desktop. Now, somebody thought about the unknown need of the user to bring mobility on cell phone and make the life of business user very nice. Now, that is an example of an unknown need. Another example is Chromecast or Apple TV. Now, around 5 years before, one of my friends from US, Amit Gandhi, visited us in Bangalore, and he gave us Apple TV. I've never heard of it in India during that time. And then when he played it, the content was getting rendered, on the TV, and we were sitting around 13 feet away from the TV on the sofa. And myself, my wife, my kids, we were amazed. The reason is we sitting in India didn't think about it. Apple did, and later Google did. So now if you look at this is basically, different categories of service needs and unserviced needs is nothing but traversing and climbing a Mount Everest. As you climb Mount Everest, climbing it is difficult, yet it is rewarding. So as we unfold various category of needs, we are able to integrate all of them together and thus uncover the dards or needs of our customer. Let's take another example to help this deepen the understanding here. So this example is that any organization who wants to do sales excellence, how do we know that what are the needs for sales excellence? So let's look at the service needs. Every organization will have a sales team, a CRM, and list of accounts to target. No need met. Let's go to the unknown needs that's not met. Most of the sales leaders or CEOs you meet, they will say, I want more deals. I want them to come at a faster pace. I want the size of the deals to be larger. I want predictable pipeline. I want qualified leads. I want account to be qualified. Now, these are common requirements, yet they are not met. It might look very surprising, but that's the reality. So known needs not met. Now let's go to known needs with resistance to change. Sales process adoption. We talked about CRM. There are many items in sales processes, methodologies. There are resistance to change because people find, adopting to these processes sometimes difficult. Social selling, which is the new age selling currently, using LinkedIn and other platforms for connecting with customers, doesn't come naturally because we are tuned to doing it in a different way. Similarly, ABM or account-based marketing is something new, which people are adopting to, yet the adoption is relatively low because it requires change. Let's look at unknown needs. So in sales, if you look at new technology adoption, so we send email to customers, correct? But if I ask you to create a video of 30 seconds and send it, there are tools for it now. That is something new age. Document tracking. Imagine if you have when you send a proposal, people are clicking on the third slide of proposal and you are aware of that. Now, that is something which is possible through document tracking tool. Resourceful mindset. Just an example, if suppose you carry a target of $2 million by your boss has given. Now, that is an external target. What do you internally feel about it? Do you feel aligned to it, or do you feel, oh no, this is a big thing, I don't know what target it is? If your internal and external are not aligned, that you will not be resourceful. Now this is for sales excellence a need which is generally missed. Storytelling. If there is one most simple and most effective unknown need for sales excellence which we can choose is storytelling. Correct? Subject matter experts. Can a sales owner be a subject matter expert in the area which he or she is representing? Service mindset. And marketer. Can a sales owner be an expert marketer? Sometimes people might even think, what is it? Sales is different, marketing is different. It is not in the new age. Now, if we combine all of this, this is one view of the service needs and unserviced needs of sales excellence. Now, as you look at it, you can reflect, okay, which of the areas you are already addressing, which of the areas you're not addressing, correct? The same thing you can create for any offering which you are selling. Suppose you are selling IT services. Suppose you are selling CRM. Suppose you are selling personalization. Any product or service which you are selling, you can create service needs and unserviced needs. And then this repository will help you engage your customers better. Now we have understood what is this. Now let's discuss about how to climb the Mount Everest of needs. There are three ways. One is to create a repository. The other is to ask questions. The third is to listen to market. Let's take them one by one. Now create a handy repository of the needs of your top 5 customers. Why top 5? Because if you address top 5 customers who are driving major revenue for you, that will cover most of the needs that you are serving. So this template is self-explanatory. The advantage of this template is once you have this all collected, you can use this in your sales process. Your sales team will have, okay, these are the needs I am addressing for my top 5 customer. Can I pitch them to other customers, other prospects? Most of the time, we even don't know what needs we are already servicing. So this is one tool which can help you. And you can categorize them into service need, unserviced need, known need, unknown need in the need category. That will further help you understand, okay, what kind of need is an unknown need, what kind of need, so that you can handle your prospects better. The second is asking questions. So why are questions important? Because questions create two P's: P for participation and P for possibility. So in in this case, let's the one style of questioning is ask your larger organization. So you ask, what are the top 5 needs that are currently not in our product roadmap but will create maximum impact for our clients? I mean, a lot of time we are only aware of things which we are doing, which was in the previous slide, that what are the top 5 customers needs. The other way is to look at it from, what is in our roadmap, but what is not in our roadmap. Similarly, what are the top 5 needs that our competitors are addressing and we are not? Now, do you understand what will happen if you have this things with you? You will be able to engage your customers better. You will appear as a trusted advisor, as an expert. Similarly, questions for clients. A lot of time, these new requirements come from clients. I've just given few examples. There is no limit to it. For example, if I'm meeting a digital transformation insurance company, and I will say, it is great to see the great work you have done in digital transformation. Is there any requirement that is still not met and is in line with your vision of being the best in digital transformation? Now I'm opening it up for them. I'm acknowledging they're good. I'm still asking, is there anything which you have not done? Similarly, if I'm presented case studies and success stories, I will ask them, I've shared a number of success stories. Thank you very much. I'm curious if there is any requirement that you have and I may not have covered. So there are many ways of asking questions. I've just mentioned a couple of them. The idea is client will open up and may share any need which is not getting serviced. Similarly, if you have a broader sales team, the knowledge resides with them also. So a sales owner in India can ask a sales owner from Indonesia that what are the top 3 advanced analytics needs that are resonating most with clients in Indonesia. I hope you are getting the drift of Mount Everest of needs. If you are, please type yes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. So now the last one, which is a third, market feedback. Clients we discussed, partners, analysts, competitors, regulators, technology trends. Gartner, doing research on internet, talking to your partners, competitor analysis. This one, regulators, I would like to share a very short story. So I was in a startup which was serving banks in analytics, and in October 2010, RBI, Reserve Bank of India, published a paper on automated data flow known as ADF. The paper mandated banks in India to automate their regulatory reporting returns, right, within a span of 2 to 3 years. Now, we were an analytics company, and this paper was actually found by one of the sales owners, not by me. He shared that paper with me, and when I looked at the paper, I saw this is a pull opportunity, because one is pushing a product and there's pull. Why pull? Because everybody will have to buy this, correct? Because it is mandated by regulator. So I connected with my CEO, and we very soon agreed that we need to create a product in this space, and the rest is history. Because wonderful thing happens after that. We got many clients, and all of that happened because one sales owner listened to the market. He was listening to the regulator, and which helped the entire strategy of the company, from analytics company to analytics and regulatory compliance. It changed. Okay? So thank you very much on this. Now I will share how we are using Mount Everest of needs in real life example. How am I using it? So we sell to retail at Manthan. So what I do is, generally when I go for a presentation, this is a secret. If you get it, you will nail every meeting. In my experience, what I have done is, rather than pitching product and features, I pitch dards, or the needs. Okay? And rather than saying your needs, you look at the drift. What I'm using, I am using a drift that I because of my role, I meet various marketers, progressive marketers like yourself. I meet hundreds of marketers and retails, and I found that they have 6 drivers. Correct? Now, then I will click on this, these three things will come: unify, personalize, and orchestrate. And then these six things will come. And I will go one by one. I will say, do you have unified record of customer containing identity and behavior across both online and offline? What is your feedback on this? I mean, do you feel it relevant to you? Is it being adopted in your space? It's a dialogue happening on this six. I'm telling you in one slide. First of all, these needs have been chosen in such a way that mostly the answer is no. Hardly I will get an answer yes on one or two. Otherwise, 30, 40, 70 to 80% it is no only. So what happens is, and it is presented in the way of six driver for customer engagement, not it is needs. So because of this drift, in the first slide itself of the presentation, people are able to understand, okay, these are the things which they are not doing. Then engaging them becomes very easier. Do you understand this drift, this particular one slide, which has been very powerful for me in particular? If yes, kindly say yes. Type yes, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you can use this Mount Everest of needs for your purposes. And one example, after you have aggregated all the needs, how can you use is given here. Okay. Now let's go to the second question of poll. I will open it up for you. Kindly respond to this. I'm launching the poll. I've launched it. You have 20 seconds. Yeah. So last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So as you can see, thanks for sharing your feedback. 4% believe that they don't capture, 24% says capture via emails, 36% say discuss verbally, 37% capture via online system. Now, what I have seen is that in one of the companies I worked, when we started capturing an online system, it was beautiful. We used to pull a report every month, and especially the sales guys, I will say, don't write email, just put it in the system. There was a month where 70 requirements from the market were shared in a system. It is more transparent and of course more productive, more structured. So with that, thank you very much for your participation. We will move to the second sutra, which is it's like. And what is it's like? It's like actually helps us create metaphor. And why is metaphor important? Because it makes communication simple and helps us become a persuasion powerhouse. Let's dig into the details. So what is a metaphor? A metaphor is a figure of speech that equates two dissimilar things for the sake of comparison or symbolism. Now this may appear a little bit of a mouthful. Let's take some examples to make it more easier. You are my sunshine. A father is telling a daughter, you are my sunshine. What is he doing? Correct? He's expressing love towards his daughter with sunshine. Correct? Equating two dissimilar things. Mother is telling her two sons, you don't fight like cats and dogs. Again, fight equated to cats and dogs. A sales supervisor is telling his team, let's crush it, guys. Again, a sales quota is equated to crushing the rock. Do you understand how this metaphor is equating two dissimilar things? Please type yes if you do. Please type okay, I think I'm on the okay, thank you. So let's look at some other examples. So to highlight the enormity of $1 trillion debt in simple words, US President Ronald Reagan said in 1981, $1 trillion would be a stack of $1,000 bills 67 miles high. You understand what would have happened in the Senate then? Okay? The moment he expressed $1 trillion in this way, stack of $1,000 bills 67 miles high. Okay? I use Amitabh Bachchan as a metaphor quite often. For example, one of the things I use is, are you Amitabh Bachchan of your craft? Okay. It's very common. In one of the banks which we were working earlier, the bank was asking for a requirement of data enrichment, which was not our sweet spot. We were doing website personalization, and they were not understanding. So when I met them, I said, we are the Amitabh Bachchans of website personalization. For data enrichment, we are like struggling newcomers in movie industry. And I am sure a marquee bank like yourself would like to work with Amitabh Bachchans. We are Amitabh Bachchans of website personalization, not of data enrichment. It is surprising that we have done normal discussion for 4 or 5 months. It was not working. One simple metaphor in a meeting worked, and they never asked us about data enrichment ever. Correct? So that's the power of metaphors. So now, is metaphors a sign of genius? Aristotle certainly believes that, and he says the greatest things by far is to be a master of metaphor. It is the one thing that cannot be learned from others, and it is also a sign of genius, since a good metaphor implies an intuitive perception of similarity in the dissimilar. This is absolutely brilliant, guys. You will see in some examples further that if we master this one thing itself, metaphors, we can become persuasion powerhouse. Let's look at some examples how to create metaphors using it's like. Now, metaphor is powerful. If there is an easier way to create metaphor, that's it's like. So it's a 3-step process. First one is take a situation. Second is choose the point of comparison. The third one is connect using it's like or is like, and that will give you metaphor. As simple as that. Now let's look at example of creating this. Step 1, situation. The situation is to highlight why working in startups and winning clients in startup is more difficult and rewarding than compared to larger companies. Step 2, comparison symbol. Scoring centuries on bouncy and swinging cricket pitches in England. And now let's look at how the metaphor is created. So this is a post which I did on LinkedIn around 8-9 months before. I'll make it bigger for you so that you guys can read it. Can you read it better now? So please read it. Take a moment and read it. So you might notice what I've done. Winning clients in a startup is like scoring hundreds on bouncy and swinging pitches in England. It is very difficult, test your skill, and yet very rewarding. Both requires deep focus, teamwork, strong desire to succeed. Most importantly, Virat Kohli. If you notice in this particular post, I have used 2 comparison symbol. One was the bouncy and swinging pitches. Another was Virat Kohli. Correct? So this was one example. Let's using the 3-step process. Now let's go to the other example. So this is sometimes your clients also share examples. So this is a client who I met, and they were having another marketing cloud. So I asked them how has been their experience with the partner of theirs who is the current marketing cloud partner. And the client said the following: Amit, it's like driving a Ferrari in the narrow lanes of Mumbai. Now you can, this one sentence can make you feel everything. Ferrari, expensive. Narrow lanes of Mumbai, that means you're not able to drive, so adoption is low. And if you break up it into our structure, situation was experience of using software from a global company. Comparison symbol was Ferrari in narrow lanes of Mumbai. Combining them, we say it's like driving a Ferrari in the narrow lanes of Mumbai. Let's go to the third example. So the third example is, in negotiation meetings, sometimes, if we have to use metaphors. In one case, what I did is I was in Middle East and there was discussion going on, your product is pricey and all of that. So I told them our software is like Mercedes-Benz at the price of Toyota Corolla. So if you look at it, what is the situation? To highlight quality and value to price elements of our software. And symbols is Mercedes-Benz and Toyota Corolla. Did you get the drift of this? Sorry, my this thing is hanged a little bit. Did you get the drift of this? Please, if yes, the power of metaphors. Please type yes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate your participation. So it's very powerful, friends, this metaphor. Now we'll go to the third sales sutra, which is magic of one thing in sales. You might have seen on my LinkedIn profile also one thing fan. So you'll come to know very soon why it is so. So first of all, why one thing is required? Because we want to achieve more by doing less. How? And let's understand. So have you heard of Pareto principle? If yes, just say yes, please. Have you heard of Pareto principle in the past? Okay, so a mixed feeling. So let me just quickly explain. Pareto principle is a 20-80 rule. What is the meaning of 20-80 rule? Is that 20% of things give 80% of results. Meaning 20% of customers give 80% of revenue. 20% of batsmen in the world score 80% of runs, and so on. So if we just create an example that let's say a CEO is telling his team, okay, list down 100 things which can make sales predictable. So they will list down 100 things, and then Pareto principle will say select 20 among them, and those 20 implement them, because those 20 will give 80% results in sales improvement. Correct? Are you with me on Pareto principle? Please type yes if you have understood. Oh, very good. So now, thank you. Now what one thing does, so you have identified 20 out of 100, correct? What one thing does is that keep applying Pareto principle on that 20 until you get one thing. So there is no 20. Out of 100, Pareto said 20. One thing says out of 100, only one. And this entire book is based on this question. The book is called The One Thing. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? So now the question that changed my life on December 28, 2017, I was reading this book in December, The One Thing, and this was a time of New Year. And as you know that the resolutions were coming, and I was thinking this year also I will do many resolutions and do nothing, get confused. So since I was reading the book One Thing, this question came: what is the one habit I can develop in 2018 such that by developing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? So the answer came: join 5 a.m. club. And I joined 5 a.m. club on January 2nd, 2018. Since then, I wake up every day at 5 a.m. And because of that one thing, everything has changed. Since I wake up early, what do? I have to read books. I read books. I exercise. I meditate. I can start to office early. I reach home early. I sleep early. I have also become an author because I have started appreciating books. All of this has happened because of one thing, which is joining 5 a.m. So now, understanding the power of one thing, how can we apply in sales? So there are many areas. I have just covered three: client engagement, sales planning, and teams and process. So in client engagement, whenever I'm going for a client meeting, people will say, okay, what are the 3 outcomes you need, 5 outcomes? I actually tell my team that what is the one thing we need from a client meeting? Just one thing. I recently asked one of my team members who went to Thailand. He had 5 meetings. I said, for each meeting, just find out one thing. And he did it, and he came back very smilingly. He said, we achieved that one thing amazingly well, and we have next steps for everything. It was amazing. Similarly, the other model which I use is, if I have to meet a client and there are X number of slides, if I have to present only one slide, what will it be? Even for this deck, if you ask me what is the one slide, I know the slide, and that one slide is the Virat Kohli slide. So this power of one thing, when it becomes your habit, everything requires practice. So for me, it has become my habit. For everything, I ask one thing. Correct? Similarly, sales planning. What is the one thing I can achieve in sales in this quarter such that it will de-risk the entire year? You can ask this for your organization. When I asked, I got an answer: get 60 meetings in the quarter. Just get 60 meetings. Everything else is sorted. because if the top of the funnel is sorted, everything else is sorted. For you, it might be a different answer, but the point is, it is one thing. The team process. What is one capability my sales team can develop in Q1 for predictable closure? And the answer I got is storytelling. You may get a different answer. The point is still one answer. Are you getting the drift of one thing, please? If yes, please type yes. Okay, thank you very much. It's very powerful, very, very powerful. It requires some practice. It is very powerful though. So now let's look at some examples of how this one thing was used. One was Ashwin Khasnes. This is I was interviewing him for a position, and during the position, we started becoming friends during that interview, and I shared this one thing with him, and he applied that one thing, and then for closing a deal, and actually agreed to share it as a testimonial for my book. So this is an exact excerpt from the book, which it is written. You can read it. It might take some 30 seconds. Why don't you read it for 30 seconds? This is the exact excerpt from the book. Then I'll just explain that as well. So basically, what he did is, when in that meeting, he asked each owner who was present, IT head, marketing head, legal head, end user decision, what is the one thing is very important for you? And they mentioned these things. And then he focused on that area for each one of them. He won the account using his service-minded approach and the one thing focus, even though he was not the cheapest. You understand the power of one thing? This is the guy I just met for as a part of the interview process. He learned something, he applied it, and now he's so excited to share it that he has given the entire story to be part of the book. The second example is my own example, which is how I used one thing for fueling growth in a startup. So I asked this question: what is the one thing we can do within next 3 to 6 months that will fuel predictable growth for the next 1 year to 3 years? Please read this question again. It is a little twisted. Still, it is very powerful. Okay. So basically, I was planning to find one thing for long-term strategy for the organization, correct? Which can be done in first 2 quarters of the financial year. So I got various responses within my head: change org structure, hire more sales owners, new product capabilities, open new markets, relocate sales owners to near to the customer, create a pricing structure that would address our growth ambition, all of that. I was not satisfied with that answer. Why? Because it was not the one thing. What was the one thing? One thing was focus on 100% retention of existing accounts. Now, this is very counterintuitive. Even when I told in this on the organization, people find it, what is this? We are talking about growth. He's talking about 100% retention. In retention, there is no growth. That is the problem. In a startup, if you do not retain your accounts, there is no reference. There is no reference. You will not be able to close new sales. Correct? And that's what we did. We ensured that all our red accounts became green. Retention is there, and because of retention, they were referenceable, and therefore we were doing epic sales. Correct? Do you understand the power of one thing? In the other 2 examples, I hope you do. So with this, I have actually pretty much covered the 3 sales sutras. Correct? Before we open the Q&A, just a couple of more slides. Basically, anything which you hear, a lot of research shows that when we hear something, it remains us for a specified period of time. A lot of things we forget. So to deepen your learning, I would request you and urge you to kindly practice these 3 exercises for each of the sutra. For the first one, I would urge you to please identify serviced, unserviced needs for whatever you are selling, using Mount Everest of needs. For the metaphor, it's like, please create at least 3. 3 is just a number. You can create 10. More you create, the more easier. And it is easy. You just please try that. And the third one is, if we can identify one area in sales and in life where you can use one thing. We gave examples of life and sales both. And if you document that, these are the three exercises. If you do, and if you have any queries, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am always available, and my email is also listed. Correct. So before we move forward to the last couple of slides and Q&A, I would like to do another poll, the last poll. I'll give you 20 seconds for that. The poll is among three sales sutras. Which one would you choose if you have to choose only one? So your 20 seconds starts now. Okay, last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you very much for your participation. As you can see, 12% is for Mount Everest of needs, 16% is for its like, and 72% is for one thing. So it looks like one thing is the clear winner. All three are very, very important. They address different aspects of sales. And I'm glad that, even if we can choose one and implement, that is very powerful, in line with the one thing. So my last slide before we open to Q&A. So you've heard of this term called epic sales. So what does epic sales mean? So for that, let's reflect on the David and Goliath story. In David and Goliath, where David was a shepherd boy, he had a staff, he had a sling, and he had 5 stones. And using this arsenal of a staff and a sling and 5 stones, he was asked to fight with Goliath, who has defeated so many armies. And what he did, he used this sling and fired the stone. The stone hit the giant Goliath in his head, and he was dead just by one stroke. So epic sales is about creating victory, which is improbable. Chances were less, and yet created a milestone. That is epic sales. Normal sales everybody does. Epic sales is this. And I believe, while the book talks about the one strategy of creating epic sales, and it will be released in 2 to 3 months. The 3 sales sutras which are taken from the book will certainly, guaranteedly help you create epic sales. And my best wishes are that you create epic sales, in business and in life. Thank you very much. With that, over to you, Ankita, for Q&A.
Thank you, Amit, for your presentation. Let's just quickly begin the Q&A round. So the first question is by Sindhura. She's asking, how can we know about competitors like different sources for financial services?
So can I speak? They will hear, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. So can you please repeat the question once again?
Yeah, the question is, how can we know about the competitors like different sources for financial services?
Yeah. So I think question is not absolutely clear, but I'll still mention. See, basically, if you are in sales, how will you find competition? One is you can quickly look at some analyst report. So like, for example, if I have to look at a new category called customer data platform, I just open a Gartner report, and either Gartner will have a magic quadrant, or it will have a report if the magic quadrant is not there, and it will list all of the things which are there. The other way is, if once you are comfortable with your clients, once you have little rapport, and that's the salesmanship which is required. Once you're rapport, a lot of the time clients tell, these are the companies. When we were starting a new startup, I will ask a client, which are the other partners you are talking to. So sometimes even Gartner can't list them, because Gartner will list only top, or analysts can't list. There are many other players. So asking clients, being in the market, of course, doing the normal Google search, all of these are the things which can help you identify your competition. Yeah.
All right, Amit. The next question is by Sam. He's asking directly from one of the slides. He's asking, "Hi, Amit. Who defines this one thing?"
Yeah. So see, basically, one approach, the first of all, who defines this one thing is the person who is asking the question, correct? So if you are asking the question, you define the one thing. So in the examples which we have given, let's say the example was uh, what is the one habit I can develop in 2018 as a new year resolution, correct? So now that question is asked by myself. So what will happen in my mind when I ask one thing? There might be, I might not get one thing answer. I might get an answer, okay, no, I can wake up at 5 a.m. I can do exercise. I can do meditation. I can go early to office. I can start writing. These are all good habits I want to develop, resolution, let's say. But then the question is, okay, what is the one thing among them? So the person who is asking the question has to answer, and how he answers is maybe in the beginning you will list down those things, correct, and then select them, prioritize. In my case, I have seen when it becomes a habit, it becomes automatic. I have become so fast in it that the moment I ask a question, what is the one thing, I get an answer. But it has happened over time. I'm doing it from almost 1.5 years, so it has become a habit. In the beginning, even I used to write, okay, these are the 5 options, or which one is the most important. If I have to select one, and it happens. Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right, Amit. The next question is by Ibrahim. He's asking, "Do we use successive iteration of Pareto principle to narrow down the one thing?"
Yeah. So basically, the Pareto principle is uh, was very famous because of the 20-80 rule. Right? You can use the, if you want to structure it, let's say you can say, okay, first identify 20% out of that. Suppose you have 10 things to do. Identify 20% is two. So you can identify from our mind works better when we structure things, because suddenly if you say one thing, you might feel overwhelmed. Okay, what is this? I have to find one. Let's apply Pareto principle, which is 20%. Right? If it was 100, find out 20. It was 50, 20% of 50 is 10. And then from 10, again apply 20%. Okay, what happens? Once it is comes to 2, 3, the 20% mathematics will not work. So you can then choose one out of them. Yeah.
All right, Amit. Anand has a question for you. He's asking, "Can you please talk about upselling for account growth?"
Yeah, so upselling for account growth, I would suggest that's a complete different topic. We can certainly take that question if there are no other questions, because questions pertaining to the content in the webinar. If you could
Sure.
please send me a note on LinkedIn, I would certainly respond to it on LinkedIn for upselling, and we can also cover that in some other webinars. Yeah, go ahead, Ankita. Another
Sure,
question.
sure, Amit. The next question is, which is the most important sales sutras amongst the three which we have discussed?
Yeah, so you are giving the medicine to the doctor, correct? So if you ask my favorite, the for me it is the one thing. This is personally it has changed my life, as I have described. It's very powerful. It creates so much structure. It is initially, I must positively warn you that it may sound annoying to people, correct? It may, because people are not used to it. The good thing which helped me is the book, because I said this is the book, and so people got interested more. Okay, there is a book, and then when I started using it, I started getting wonderful results. As simple as that. If I ask what is the one thing I can do to develop rapport with my boss, one thing, I get an answer. What is the one thing I can do to develop healthy relationship with my kids? The answer came is continue telling them two stories in the night. Don't stop. So I think the one thing is the most powerful. It is a sutra, sales sutra for both life and business. Yeah. Yes, Ankita.
All right, Amit. The next question is by Vineet. He's asking, "What's the best way to reach out to management stakeholders during the sales process whom you have never met?"
So I think again this is a little off the topic, but I'll still answer it. So see, there is a thing called rapport, and rapport happens when people like you. People like you, and for doing that, there has to be something common. So whenever you are reaching out to somebody in sales, you have to describe two things. One is commonality, so that person, commonality or similarity, and the second one is relevance. So for example, if you are reaching out to, this is not the sales sutra here, where I am giving you, this is the additional bonus because of being such a wonderful audience for participating. So if I reach out to anybody on LinkedIn, this is the structure. I will look at their LinkedIn profile and I will find common words which they have used. Now mark this, they have used. So and that is common with me. So I will write as follows: the LinkedIn invite. Dear, let's say the person is Ajay. Dear Ajay, we have common interest in sales and digital marketing. Full stop. Look forward to mutual learning and sharing on LinkedIn. With regards, Amit. Now, this is a structure. The only thing which changes in every invite I send are the two words. And those two words are found from the person's description or LinkedIn profile, which resonates with me. So this is an example of similarity. First, you will have to find something similar. You can actually go to their website. You find, okay, they have published a report, annual results, or there is an interview which is published. Develop something which is common, correct? And develop rapport with them. There is an entire full section on this rapport building, which we can do in a different webinar. But for now, just remember this: something similar and relevant. Offer something which is relevant to the person before even offering. Develop that rapport in terms of similarity. Yeah. And I would highly recommend LinkedIn. LinkedIn is I mentioned social selling as a resistance to adoption. I would urge you to use social selling more and more, and the best way to check it out is your social selling index. Check out your social selling index. Once you please do a Google SSI, social selling index. Check it out and then measure it automatically, monthly. If your SSI is going up, that means you are engaging people. So please engage people on LinkedIn using this similarity and relevance principle. It will work 100%. Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Amit. Even we have our next episode on social selling in the month of May. More details coming soon. Yeah, on 16th of May.
Okay, very nice. Yeah. Oh, Amar said he's taking that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, Amar is a dear friend, Ankita.
Yeah. So the next question is, how can we take smooth negotiations without saying negative words?
Okay. So, I think these are all important questions. Ankita, can we park them because, this is in the context
Amit, I just suggest can you just look at the questions window? Can you just scroll anything which you find, because there's so many questions, and
okay.
Anyone
sure.
which interests you, or it is just in sync with the presentation.
Okay, so this is the question: is which is the one thing that is needed to get into sales, correct? What is the one thing that is needed to get into sales? So the one thing needed to get into sales is what I call is the AI model. So I stands for intent and A stands for action, not artificial intelligence, but A for action and I for intent. So for anything in this sales, if you have a very strong desire to be in sales, first of all, cultivate that desire more. And the second is take action. So if you can just identify, let's say, top 5 leaders of sales leaders on LinkedIn in the area you want to go, and you send a LinkedIn post to them. 5 may be a lesser number. Let's say identify 20. If you take a Pareto principle itself, 20-80, 20% might respond to you. So first, develop that intent that I need to be in sales and identify the why part. A lot of the time, we are looking at what and how. If we are clear on why I need to be in sales, why? And when you communicate that why, Simon Sinek says people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. If you say why I want to be in sales and you send this note to 20 people on LinkedIn, it is almost guaranteed that if that why is powerful, people will respond and you will get into sales. So let me look at.
Shall we take this one, Amit? How do I use the 80-20 rule in my life? So that's again a little vague, but
No, that's okay. Yeah, so basically,
yeah.
in life, as I mentioned, I took example of uh, in my case, I took an example of what resolutions can I develop during the new year in 2017 December. So when I started one thing, the first was 2080, correct? So if I list down, okay, I have to wake up in the morning, I need to spend time with kids, I need to reach home early, I need to eat food early, I need to look at my health, I need to meditate, I need to write. If I look at all these things, there are 20 things which will come. Now, within those 20, when we apply Pareto principle, we will have to identify 20%. So 20% of 20 is 4, and then if we apply it further it will become 1. So first step is pick a area of life. The second is list down all the options on a piece of paper, and once you list down all the options you will be easily able to find out, okay, this is not 20%, negate, find the 20% and then find the top.
All right, Amit, this next question is how to use three sutras when you lose the deal and you find that you were the runner-up.
Very interesting. So one question you can ask is, what is the one thing which we can learn out of this loss? So you can also ask, what is the one thing which we didn't do right, because of which we lost? You can also ask, what is the one thing which we could have done before, because of which we would have won. Correct. Now, if you have to use metaphor, you can say, during my sales process, was our communication simple, or was it very technical? Was it very jargon free? How could have we, which 5 metaphors we would have used during the sales cycle, which would have helped us simplify the communication? Correct. And the first one is the most important in this case. Did we understood the needs of the customer? Or we could say, because of this loss, let me reflect which were the unknown needs of the customers which we didn't tell the customer. That is the most profound. The fundamental problem which I see is people are telling people what they already know. We as sales owners have to tell people, tell me something I don't know. Most of the times people lose deals because they are telling something which people don't know. People know. So that is the Mount Everest of needs. That is the most profound, where if a sales owner needs to become an expert, he is like a doctor. He needs to, the doctor, when you go to a doctor will find out, you can tell him, I have a fever. Doctor can also tell you, you have this problem also. Basically, a sales owner, new age sales owner, is a doctor. He is able to unearth new needs, very easily. And for that, we have to be an expert in Mount Everest of needs. So it might be little more difficult than the other sutras. It is very powerful because trusted advisor thing comes from Mount Everest of needs. When we are able to speak on a particular topic as a TED talk for 18 minutes, can you speak non-stop on a topic what you are selling? Then we achieve that expertise, and that comes through Mount Everest of needs.
Okay, Amit, looking at the time, let's just take this as the last question. It
Okay.
is a law of averages relevant when it comes to sale?
So actually, I am a big believer of mindset. I'm a big believer of mindset. If you look at my career, I have worked first 10 years in large companies, last 10 years in 4 startups. And startups, it is, as you might have seen through some examples, Epic, David and Goliath, or Virat Kohli. You can see, in startups, it's not easy when you already have top big companies already there. So what what is the number one thing? It is the mindset, and the resourceful mindset is the most important thing. So I don't use that word very often. I use it may sound little pompous. I used it in the past, which was in Hindi. I can say it can't be converted in English, which is hum hi hum hai, baki sab gum hai. Right? There is a strong attitude and this mindset required to be successful in sales, especially in startups. So this law of averages and all, if my mind starts working like that, oh, law of averages, 10 deals, this, I don't even know what is law of averages, right? So I think my recommendation would be to be in very resourceful mindset and developing that. Yes, any sale you are going, when you are entering, the only use it as a mantra: I will win it, I will win it, I will. It may find, you may find it childish, I still do it. At 42 years of age, entering a client meeting, I still do it. I still do it. This meeting I will crack, I will be awesome, I am awesome. When we keep on repeating these words, it happens. Universe is. So that resourceful mindset, where we are talking about things which are positive, which are uplifting people, that is more important. And in sales is the very important thing, because the moment our salesperson energies goes down, the entire organization, the client goes down, the room goes down, organization goes down. Salesperson energy has to be very high, for which I would highly recommend looking at models which are resourceful. Law of averages is, I personally don't resonate with it. One thing is resourceful. All of these things are much more resourceful. Yeah.
All right. So, thank you so much, Amit, for the pragmatic approach you shared with all of us today. How to nail a sales meeting by giving real time examples. It was really awesome. Thank you for your time and efforts in sharing these three sales sutras. I'm sure each one of the audience here had more than one takeaway today. I'm really very sure about it. And for all the people out there, all of the audience, tomorrow at the same time, I will meet you all again on the first series of blockchain. Decentralization and the importance of blockchain is the topic. Join me to learn more about this futurist and trending technology. For more info, please visit nashcom.in/events. I'm also reiterating that Amit's credentials are there living in your inbox. The moment you will open the template, Amit's LinkedIn ID is there. Please contact him and ask questions and become a great salesperson like him. Thank you, all of you. Thanks, you.
Wish you guys epic sales. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.